Charlie Munger, the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, who recently passed away with a net worth of $2.3 billion, has a famous quote where he says, "The first $100,000 is but you got to do it. I don't care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon, find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease off the gas a little bit." Okay, so plain and simple, Mr. Munger was referring to compound interest and the power of it. So compound interest is your interest earning interest. I know that sounds a bit confusing, so we're going to give an example to kind of illustrate this point. But before I get into that example, I kind of want us to think of compound interest like a teammate. So we're going to start the game off playing by yourself, which means you have to do all the heavy lifting and all the production is based off your blood, sweat, and tears. But then you get a teammate. He'll be a rookie, so he'll be helpful, but he won't be able to take over the game yet. But as time progresses, that rookie gets more and more mature, is able to assist you more and more. So you have to do less of the heavy lifting. With that being said, let's take a look at this graph. Okay, so as we take a look, and this is considering 10,000 annual savings and a 7% annual interest rate. We see that to get to our first $100,000 takes right under 8 years. Now, what I want you to notice here is that the savings is 78%. So 78% of that $100,000 comes from our blood, sweat, and tears, our hard work, our contributions. And this is what I mentioned earlier when I want us to think of compound interest as a teammate. So in this first $100,000, we start without a teammate because we're earning zero interest because we have zero money. But then we get a rookie, and the rookie is starting to add a little bit. And at the end of the $100,000, he's contributed 22% of our 100K. Now, when we take a look at getting our second $100,000, we see the time is reduced pretty significantly down to 5.1 years. So we'll call it 5 years. But the takeaway here is if we look again at savings and returns, now 51% of that money was contributed by us. 49% is from compound interest or our teammate. So we're basically splitting the workload here to get to our next 200,000. Now from 200,000 to 300,000, the workload has effectively swung in our favor. So we are now contributing only 38%, while compound interest is contributing 62%. So I would liken this to the rookie is now a little more seasoned and taking over games, and we are able to work a little less but still have the desired effects. And as we go down the timeline here, we see that we need to contribute less and less and less, and our compound interest is doing more and more of the work as time progresses. And this is compound interest. It's your interest earning money on interest. And coming back to the teammate analogy, we can think of this as the rookie is now seasoned and able to dominate games, and we are maybe on the latter part of our career getting ready for retirement. So our contributions are smaller now, and the rookie has now become the star. And I just want to reiterate the takeaway from this chart here is that getting to the first 100,000 is the hardest and takes the longest. But if we can get there, the progressive $100,000 marks get easier and easier and require less and less from us. Okay, so now that we've established we need to get to 100,000 as quickly as possible, I realize that's much easier said than done. So let's look at some practical ways that we can apply to our lives to help us get to that point. First, we need to spend less. And I mention this first because typically this is the easiest and most immediate thing that we can start doing right now. Okay, so we're going to do 3 things to try to help us reduce our spending. Number 1, we're going to create a budget and we're going to find out exactly where our money's going. Number 2, and this is going to be based off the budget we created, is we're going to take a look at any discretionary spending. So this is money that we spend on things we don't need, but things that we want. And we're going to cut out as much of that as possible while still trying to enjoy life. So we don't want to deprive ourselves 100%, so we're just completely miserable. But we do want to make some cutbacks so we can increase our savings rate.
Money is not to be wasted on things that bring you happiness and joy. Money is to be hoarded until you have enough money that your money makes more money.
And lastly, if we're not happy with our savings rate, we're going to try to implement a no-spend month a couple times throughout the year. Now, I want us to approach this like a game. Can we get through the month without any extra spending? Again, I want to stay away from feeling deprived because then you're going to fall off the wagon. But I want us to think of it more as a game. And how can we increase our spending? Can I do better than the previous month? And take it like a personal challenge. The next way we're going to try to get to our 100K a little quicker is by increasing our income. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, and I almost feel stupid saying that because if you would have been able to make more money, you'd already be doing that. But I want you to be a little more intentional about it. So personally, I've never been a high earner, right? My highest earning years thus far have been as a teacher in Texas. So you can do the math on that. It's not a lot though. But I've always found a way to make a little extra income by doing extra things on the side. So example, when I was teaching, I would also pick up coaching. So when I coached basketball, I made a couple extra grand a year. So just things like that you can do that are kind of unique to your situation and depend on what kind of job you're in. I want you to start by looking at, are there any certifications that you can get or any kind of education? Maybe it's offered by your job. My current job offers free schooling, so I work for a college, so they offer free schooling. So I'm currently enrolled in class and taking full advantage of that. A lot of jobs offer those type of things, certification or education that progress you down your career. If not, maybe you just need to pay for it. You can afford to pay $300-400 for a couple certifications that could potentially land you a job that'll double or triple your income. Next up, I want us to prepare in advance for performance reviews. Most jobs have a yearly performance review. So what I do personally is I track the entire year. Any project I've worked on, anything I've done that's above and beyond what's required of me at my job, I track all of it. So that when the performance review comes around, I have bullets that I can show my supervisor, hey, these are things that I did above and beyond the call of duty. And typically that helps with your performance review, and you might be able to get a couple extra dollars out of it. If your job offers overtime, take advantage of that. My first job moving to Texas was working with security forces, so it's a security job. Those type of jobs have a lot of overtime available, and I was averaging between 60 and 72 hours a week. There were 12-hour shifts. So if you have the opportunity to work overtime and you want to increase savings, that's the way to go. And lastly in this category, try to find a side hustle. Ideally, it's something you enjoy doing. And I know there's a ton of YouTube videos on side hustles. And unfortunately, a lot of them require a huge following or they're just ridiculous, so people watch them. But there are real side hustles, and I'm going to create a video on that later on. Actual side hustles that I've done with my kids, my wife has done. But that's for a later time. But find something you enjoy doing, preferably. It doesn't have to be. It could be cutting grass. But just find something that can bring in a couple extra dollars every single month. So third and last, we're going to take the difference between what we earn and what we spend, and we're going to invest that difference. Now, what you invested in is entirely up to you. Whatever your preference is. If you prefer stocks, do stocks. If you prefer real estate, then do real estate. Whatever direction you go, make sure you have a thorough understanding of it though. So personally, I do stocks. Now, I do that for several reasons. One, it's much simpler. Two, I'm currently living overseas, so it's difficult for me to try to do anything with real estate that's all the way in America. I'm not willing to take that risk right now. And three, I have a pretty good understanding of it. Once you've identified what you want to invest in, automate it. You want to make this as brainless as possible so that your emotions don't get in the way. Especially if you're doing something like stocks. The stocks go up and down as time goes on. You don't want to get emotional and sell when your stocks go down. So have it automatic, set it and forget it. So I hope this was helpful. I hope there were some takeaways. If you have any comments or any ways that you're going to reach 100,000 a little quicker, please leave me a comment down below. Let's listen to what Mr. Munger said. Let's get to 100,000, whatever it takes. Legally, that's the disclaimer. Legally, just get to that 100K. Okay, I'll see you next week.